Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the London International Animation Festival. I am Nag Vladimirsky, the festival director, and you've just seen the second of our international competition programs, from Absurd to Zany. Welcome to my home. This is all quite strange and in some ways a bit more intimate than anything we're used to, but I think we're all getting used to the wonderful world of Zoom these days. So this is our first live Q&A at the London International Animation Festival, live as in a virtual live event. And we have 4 guests. We might have 5 if Kaspar manages to join us in time. But at the moment, we have 4 guests with us, 4 the filmmakers whose films we've just screened, alongside my co-director, Malcolm Turner, who is with us from Melbourne. What time is it in Melbourne, Malcolm?
It's about half past 8 in the morning.
8:30 in the morning.
So, in the morning.
Okay. So. Well, it's about 9:30 in the evening here, so yeah. Slightly different time zone. So the 4 directors we have, 3 directors and a producer we have with us tonight. We have Sasha Svirsky and his producer Nadja Svirsky, whose film was My Galactic Twin Galaction. They are from Russia. They've joined us from Russia. We have Leonid Schmelkov, whose film Room with a Sea View we've also screened. He's also joining us from Moscow in Russia. And we have Gabriel Bohmer, whose film was Push This Button If You Begin to Panic. And Gabriel's joining us from just outside London, a place called Winchester. So I'll start with a question for you all. This is just a general question for all of you, and you can all leap in and answer, whoever wants to go first. One thing that particularly struck me about all of your films is that they all have quite a strong observational style to them. It felt like there were quite a lot of outside influences that might, outside as in they might not have come from animation themselves or other animated filmmakers. Felt like there were a lot of influences from live action films or literature or music. And I just would like you to speak a bit about what might have sparked your initial ideas for your films, and if there were indeed any specific influences from anywhere. So would anyone like to start?
Sure, I'll go first. So my film revolves around a medical scan, which is a MRI scan. And that kind of initially informed the color palette and the visuals of the film. MRI scans are completely white on the inside, which is why my film was completely white. But then the big outside influence I had was an artist called Ben Nicholson, and I think I was in Edinburgh when I was in a museum, and I saw his relief pieces, which is basically white on white, and they're bits of wood that have been painted white, and they're at different levels. And I thought that was really interesting because what we're looking at is not lines, we're looking at shadows, really. And that really spoke to me and the film, because it's kind of a person who's not in a black space or a white space. He's kind of in between. He's in the shadows. He has this ailment that's a bit undefinable. People don't know how to help him, so he kind of lives in the shadows. And so I thought it'd be interesting to take this idea from Ben Nicholson and animate the film through shadows as opposed to lines.
Cool. Okay. Leonid or Sasha, would you like to talk about?
I can talk a bit, but maybe it's too difficult question for me. The first influence was that this film was my study in film, and I studied in Estonia with Priit Pärng, and he was my master. He's a very famous animator, and he influenced me. This is the first influence. And the second influence maybe just, it was my immigration. Like I lived several years in Estonia, and it was maybe some kind of influence for the film, but I can't recall something from the cinema or music, something specific. Just try to make some animation with some story.
Where did your initial idea for the film come from? Because it's quite a long and quite sort of complex idea in some ways.
From my life, the initial idea was just in Estonia in winter it's very dark, and it was like November, and all the day was dark snow, and I decided to buy some plants for my room because it was not something to make my life more beautiful. And then I came up with this idea with a plant shop and something, maybe the woman, and level by level I made this idea more like a story. So from my life it was.
So did you fall in love with the woman that sold you flowers?
No. Actually, the woman from the shop was not like my dream.
She just wasn't naked.
Yes, she wasn't naked, unfortunately. Just my imagination.
Okay. And Sasha, can you tell us a bit about your film, where it came from?
Actually, it's came from the calendar that we made before. It was like a calendar with posters of alien films. I took the title My Galactic Twin Galaction from the calendar. It was January, and it was kind of an attempt to imagine the initial the kind of initial spark was initial idea was to imagine and to make how alien film would look like, something like that.
It feels like your film, Sasha, was improvised in some ways. It's very fast, and did you know when you started making your film, did you know how it would end?
No.
Sasha prefers do not know what will be in the end. He wants to feel this improvisation.
Yes, usually I don't make any kind of storyboards.
Animatic, no animatic, no scripts, no.
I just start doing film and then just finish it. But in this film, this voiceover was first
recorded.
Yes, I had some kind of sketches and some animation, but I wrote down this text in the process or during the working process.
Do you work? Do you work very quickly? It seems like it's quite a fast film, and it feels like you work really, really fast.
The production process of the animation itself took 2 months, something like that.
That's fast. I'm a massive fan of your films. I think we've shown here in Melbourne. I think we've shown almost everything that you've done since I discovered your films. And you may remember one of your films took out the best of the festival here in Melbourne a few years ago. But this one is longer than most of the films of yours that I've seen recently, and I'm astonished to hear that you're able to do it in just 2 or 3 months. But there's more. This one, the thing that really interested me when I first saw it is it seems there's a lot more photo montage work. You've introduced a lot of photographic material and a lot of kind of cut out montage stuff. Is in some way, is this a development of your style, or is this just something you want to do for this film, or what direction is your style of animation heading in?
Just like to kind of mix different media, different styles. This is things that I'm very enjoyed to do.
Yeah. Okay.
And, I'm not well in speaking. Especially there's such a spread of techniques across all of the films in this program, but particularly the guests we've got here. And technique, Sasha, your films, are obvious. You have such a unique style, but the style, the technique, say, of Gabriel's film, caught my attention straight away as well. And I was wondering if, is it as painstaking, or was it as painstaking to make your film, Gabriel, as it looked on the screen?
I like to think it was more painstaking than that.
Yeah.
Actually, I can show you a little piece because it is paper cutouts. Yeah. And sometimes I was able to manipulate those just as you would with cutout animation, but sometimes I would progress as you would with hand drawn. So there's a completely new cutout. But 1 second, I'm gonna grab you something. All right, here I am. So this is one of the many heads.
Oh, wow.
My main character.
It's tiny.
It's that big.
You're kidding. Wow.
So
why did you decide to work on with such tiny pieces?
Because I decided that my 30-pound scanner was a really good way to animate a film, and I had to shrink everything down because my 16:9 field was just whatever I could scan at a time. So everything became very small, and I probably lost a decade's worth of eyesight as a result.
Right. You've got some remarkable, I'm just running into the background here. It's like the texture of a lot of the paper or the card or the material you use. Is that it in its raw form, or did you add texture to?
That is the texture of the paper, which is actually a recycled cotton, and that was quite important to me to find the right material. It was inspired by a line in the film, which is the fabric of things is unraveling quite beautifully. And so I wanted paper that was actually made from a fabric, from a cloth previously. And that's why we have this continuous tearing and pulling apart of this fabric.
Yeah. I had no idea they were so small there.
And how long did
My
did
goodness.
your film take to make from start to finish?
Start to finish took 2 years.
Wow.
But there were some big obstacles in between.
Such as the pandemic?
Such as a pandemic
Pandemic.
and having a very small child and
Wow.
very small pieces of paper, which don't necessarily mix together. But also my film is largely set in a hospital. And so the story actually had to change in a way because of the pandemic, because there were things in the film which, in light of the pandemic, meant something completely different. And I had to reshoot some things. Like, for example, I used to have some posters up in the hospital which said, "Come back when you're sicker," which meant something very different before these things happen, and now is completely sound advice. And so I had to be careful to take out some things that maybe felt a bit cynical, and in a way I think the end result is a bit more honest.
Yeah. And Leonid, a similar sort of question, or at least a question on the same topic to you. Your drawing style, I find very recognizable. It's very much your own, and it seems to lend itself to these very odd, very strange, somewhat dreamlike stories that you tell. Is that for a start? Is that something you agree with, or are you attracted to those sorts of stories just naturally, or does the drawing style kind of suggest the type of stories that you tell?
No, before this film, my style was like more colorful, less minimalistic, I think. And this time I just tried to make something more minimalistic and to be more easy, so I can do the film faster and I can think more about the story and not about the animation.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I try to be very, very, very easy, and but still wanted to be stylish, maybe to enjoy the image, and try to make this focus think when you have some unfocused places and like this. But I changed my style, so I did already another film, and I developed this direction for me.
Okay.
That's all.
Well, Sasha and Gabriel, I believe that both of you are self-taught animators, in the sense that you hadn't had formal training in animation. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but that's what I've come to believe. And I just wondered if you could talk a bit about your entry points into animation, why you decided you wanted to become to make animated films, what it was that specifically interested you about animation that pushed you into that field. Gabriel, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think the first animated thing I did was a music video for my band Bear. I'd already been working mostly as a painter at the time, and so it was kind of a logical step for me to make the paintings come alive, essentially. And it just really suited how I enjoy working, kind of by myself in a cave, and really enjoyed that experience. And then just kept going further and further. After that, I made another music video, and then after that I made my first film, which was based off of a story I wrote, and then that played at a few festivals and kind of got exposed to that world, and was really inspired more so than ever by animation. And it was just a really good way for me to continue expressing myself, especially in light of having previously mostly just painted my ideas, and getting them to connect together is really fun.
Cool. Sasha, how about you? How did you come to animation?
I graduated as a painter, and before I decided to start making animation, I made kind of self-made books.
Artist book.
Yes.
With some stories, with some plot. And Sasha, actually, he lived with his parent in the village, and he drew a lot and spent a lot of paper. And he just, it was this mountain of papers that grew around him, and in village, and there is no some galleries to show it, so it just grew at home. And then he tried this 2D animation, and
yes, well, after we bought a computer, and I started to try something, and I realized it's much much better. And when you made a book, you don't know hand drawing what to do with it, but if you made a film, you can put it in the internet or send to the festival.
And you save trees.
Yes.
When you do 2D computer animation.
Leonid, how did you enter into the world of animation?
I was an illustrator originally. I was an illustrator of books, and maybe a bit the same like Sasha. In the books, you have some story, and you make the series of pictures. And I started to add some stories from myself, because I felt that the books that I illustrate are not so funny. So I added to my pictures some additional plots for these stories. And then during my studies as an illustrator, I just, also with a computer, I bought a computer, good computer. And after this, I tried to make some animation, and it was so many pleasure for so joyful process. So after I made another film, and then I started to study animation, and then I tried to make another film and another film and another, and still like to do them. And that's all.
Yeah.
Has any of you can take this, and it's not necessarily directed at all of you or any one of you, but has the pandemic in some way helped you focus on your art form and focus on making more animation, or has it been a complete distraction and stopped you from working, or somehow, hindered creativity?
It depends on the month. When it started, I've made a lot of animation, but then the depression came, so no animation.
Yeah.
And now we get used to this depression and started to animate again.
Yeah, that's I'm asking lots and lots and lots of filmmakers this.
But for our profession, nothing changed, I think.
Yeah.
Because we animated at home, and we still animate at home, and just the problems that we could not meet together and to drink together.
Yeah.
But maybe it's different in London.
Well, Gabriel, how's the pandemic affected you?
Well, the beginning of the pandemic, all the nurseries closed, so we suddenly had no childcare. So that was quite difficult. And so both my wife and I were working from home, and we're trying to juggle childcare with working, and so it was difficult. Lots of very late nights.
Yeah.
And of course, no beer with friends. That's I think that's quite important to talk about your ideas that way sometimes, and it's also important to see other people's things, I think, and especially seeing them in person in a cinema is so valuable.
Yeah.
Mm.
The cat's not much of a mentor. I take it, not much of an inspiration.
He likes a different kind of animation than me. What can I say?
Sasha, how did the pandemic affect you?
The start of pandemic was much more stressful, since we lived in shared flat back then, and sometimes it was really unpleasant. And I was working on film that I've just started recently, and I kind of stumble, and
the last film not so fast.
Yes, the working process took a bit longer than it usually takes, and I've been making the film
quite
much longer.
Much longer than usually. Yes, but it's already finished, and and we like the result. So maybe.
Yes, I tried 3D.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's different than I usually.
Looking forward to seeing that, I have to say.
I was another question, again, it's for whoever wants to take it, is obviously sound and music is such a massive part of any film, but in particular animation. And in all of your films, it seems to play a huge part. I know, Gabriel, you've got another, a side career maybe as a musician, and Sasha, we sort of touched on how your films feel like they're improvised almost to music. Just wondered if you could talk a bit more about how you work with the process of music and sound, and can just talk a bit about how the importance of sound and music in your films. Whoever wants to take it first. Yeah.
I trust composer that I'm working with,
Alexei Prosvirnin. Yes, he's really a talented guy and our friend. Yes. We love him, and his contribution is really important in this film.
Yes, since I just sent him films, and I say him nothing. He just does what he wants and what he thinks he should.
Sasha, do you do the animation first? Look,
I'm very late. I'm very late.
You're very late, Kaspar. You are.
Last words from me. Last words.
We'll ask you a question in a minute.
Yeah, you asked me a question. I will close the door here. Sorry, I was mixing up stuff. Yes. I'm sorry. Very sorry.
We're talking, Kaspar, we're talking about music and sound in film. And I know, well, you're a musician as well as an animator.
Yeah, kind of, yes.
Yeah, can you talk about how important music and sound is in your films? How you work?
Well, usually, it's usually for me, well, it happens that I try to figure out some tune or something that fits to the style, and then I whistle it with my guitar, and then I will go to my friends who are a little bit better on music than me, and then they write it down, and then we make a rehearsal. We have a band called Criminal Elephant, and then, well, it is not so much anymore together, but we still are friends, and so we play together and record the music, and then I try to put it where I find it necessary. So, but for me, quite often, I try to put music as less as possible in my films. I will try to sort of give the music as if it's coming from the source within the film, and less like this dramatical music. In my short films, I made one feature film. This is a little different because it has a different approach and different style. So, but I like when it's not this dramaturgical music which is connected to picture, but a little bit more like sort of distanced from it, in that sense that it is not following the actions or emotions completely of the characters, but more of the atmosphere. Let's say like that. Yeah. Short comment about this.
Yes. How about you, Gabriel? Did you play the music, Gabriel, in your film?
Yes, I did play the music. I think the music almost came before the script was finished, kind of just hearing something without knowing how to play it yet, and collecting little bits that I like here and there. I was listening to a lot of Strauss at the time, but I thought it'd be interesting if it was played more slightly sedated or drunk or something. And the issue actually I had with the music in this film is I had something in my head that I could not realize. There was a violin part that I had in my head very clearly, and I got a violin, and it turns out I can't play the violin. And you cannot learn to play the violin in 2 weeks, unfortunately. So I had my cello in there, and I had sung the violin part over the music, and I had a mini breakdown. And I said, I can't finish the film. I can't play the violin. I was very silly in thinking I could learn to play the violin for this piece of music, but then the producer listened to it, and she said, oh, actually, it's quite special that it's the human voice in there, and so that's what we kept in the end. So it's kind of a mixture of experimentation and messing up.
Okay. Kaspar, is Kaspar still with us? Was he?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes,
okay,
indeed,
you're
yes.
here. Okay.
Absolutely here.
Seeing as we haven't had much of you so far,
I'm sorry.
I'd ask you specifically about your film Cosmonaut. Where did that original idea come from? I'm curious to know, how you came to your film.
Mm-hmm. Basically, I think it was starting with my. I was sort of like I'm still. Well, I'm surrounded the generation of my parents, and people are getting older in the family. So I'm sort of like I'm starting to think about the people who used to be sort of role models or heroes. They the heroism is translated to other kind of things. If you are, for example, my uncle is a former went to the polar expeditions. So now the polar expedition is to go to 3 floors down the stairs. It's the same kind of polar expedition as a as a same kind of you need to use same kind of strength to get the milk out of the shop than to hunt for penguin eggs or something like that. So I was starting to think about heroes and heroism in general, but I wanted to create a character with this kind of tragicomical ex-hero. So I had many options. At first I was thinking about like polar expedition. Then I was thinking about like you could be different kind of explorers I was thinking of. But then one child gave me a little he had found an astronaut doll from the sandbox and gave me as a present, and I took it as a sign. Wow, yes, this is my hero, and this can be a little bit bigger story because cosmonaut is also a symbol of the era, symbol of the generation of my parents in a way, because they were all living in the life in the Soviet Union. So I started to feel that, okay, this story can go more wider also, like socio-political part. And then I was starting to think about what is to get old and all these issues around, and then I put together, for me, this kind of multi-dimensional story that has it's a little bit like about, it could be a story about dementia, it could be a story about post-Soviet generation, it could be a story about alienation within the family. So I was trying to put this kind of, I was just thinking what is connected to a former hero, all these issues that can be connected to the former, or that needs to spend for our point of view a miserable life, but in his point of view still a heroic life. Let's say like that. Yeah. So basically that could be this short.
Yeah, Kaspar, hi. I love this film. It's always a highlight when one of your new films arrives. But this is the first of your films, perhaps ever, certainly for a long time, where I would have been able to actually sit down and describe the story to somebody who'd never seen it. Usually trying to describe your films to somebody, just the synopsis makes no sense when you try and put it into words. So this is a very narrative film, and I just wondered if it's a similar question to the question I asked the other guests here, but is this a one-off, or are you becoming more interested in straight line narrative?
Maybe, because the former films I was thinking them being also quite narrative, but I'm maybe getting better to be in a narrative in narrative.
Well, I think it's fair to say what narrative means to an Estonian is perhaps a unique version of narrative. I'm talking about the rest of us lesser souls.
Yes, but anyways, I mean, in this film I was just trying to, I didn't have for me, there was few things that I was thinking are interesting and nice, like this, that there is like old guy in the miserable apartment trying to be still in the space station. Then I like the idea of this weightlessness after his death in the. So I had sort of pictures that I wanted to connect together, and then all these issues about these elderly people houses and all these things, and add little social critics there. I wasn't like, it just didn't have this maybe this so much of surrealist moments, or at the same time, him being in cosmos holding the rope of the space station, there was still some magic in it, but not so. weird, maybe. It is more common. Let's say it's more common story, but
Okay.
it was not deliberate choice to make a more common story. Like, and maybe I'm now getting more connected to the wider audience.
Okay.
I don't know. It was just came like this. The next one can be totally different again.
Great.
Okay, we have to wind this up pretty soon, but before we go, I just sort of like you all to talk about what you might be working on next or now. You know, what your future plans are. So, Leonid, are you working on anything at the moment, or are you writing something new?
No, I finished another short film and enjoyed to do it during the pandemic. And now I'm trying to make a feature film. I hope. So I'm trying to do a long story. This is my plan for the next 2 years.
What's the funding situation like in Russia for animated features?
From 2019, no, from last year, we have this option to get some funding for the art feature film. So I was lucky to get it. Before, we didn't have such an opportunity, only just last year. So not so bad in Russia.
That's good.
Yes.
And you think you'll have it in the bag in 2 years' time?
I hope to finish in 2 years.
Wonderful.
Like,
Well, we hope to screen it at LIAF in 2 years' time.
I hope to.
Sasha, and are you working on something new yet?
Just finish a new film and got started yet another film. But,
Quick work.
yeah.
it's the process of the making this new film much different from the previous that is gonna be shown on LIAF, and we also made a kind of voice over, but we made it closer to the finish of the working process, and during of the process of the creation of the film, I didn't have any kind of I had not exact idea what I was doing.
Yes, Sasha worked for around 7 months, and he didn't know what he makes.
Yes, and was
a
lot of pieces of animation.
he was in panic when this was time to. This film also financed by Ministry of Culture, and we have deadline to present the result, and right now Sasha was months ago. He was in panic because there was a lot of animation without any structure, and
I had some ideas about what it gonna be about, but it was kind of really vague ideas, and
but finally Sasha find this idea which
yes,
was probably alright. But and we really like this what we have now. We hope that people will like it as well, but we'll see.
Well, remember to enter it for next year's festival.
Yeah.
Gabriel, have you got a genesis of an idea yet, or are you working on something for a new film?
I wrote something called Brouhaha, which was inspired by a story I read about these devoutly religious miners who are follow a very strict form of Catholicism outside the mine, but have a pact that when they go into the mine, they worship the devil. So that inspired quite a big story, and I'd like to animate that. I'm not sure yet if it's going to be a few short films, or maybe a few short films that make a feature, or maybe just a series. But yeah, so that's kind of the idea.
Will you use the same technique?
I think I will use a similar kind of cutout technique that I was using, but maybe on a slightly larger scale, and with a few more colors, so I can see until the end of the project.
We'll see you in a couple of years then.
Yes.
Thank you.
Kaspar, what are you up to at the moment?
I'm actually storyboarding about 20-minute stop motion film. And it's actually, it's also about miners. There are some miners there, and it's going to be sort of steampunk fantasy, let's say like that. So something completely different. Let's say quite narrative and yes, this kind of story of Hollow Earth. It's about well, many things, but that's my plan. And now I'm trying to I got some funding just recently for development, and I try to apply like at some point to production. It was supposed to be international co-production at the first place, but then probably we'll see how it goes. Maybe still gonna be a purely Estonian stop motion film this time. So it's good to get back to stop motion again.
Yeah, you sort of alternate between the two, it seems.
Yeah, but it depends on idea. What is the story? This story, actually, what I'm doing now was, well, it started actually as a live action project, a feature live action project, and then one point it started to shrink, and then one point it became quite obvious that it's very hard to make it like in reality this live action. And now I'm quite happy that we skipped the plan of making a feature live action, and it became the same idea basically became 20 minutes stop motion. It's quite like this realistic style of puppets, but at the same time completely unrealistic world. So it's like, yeah, something again a little different, I think, than my former works. Yes. So we'll see how it goes.
Excellent. Okay, well, we have to wind this up now. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to our guests and filmmakers for tonight. So thank you to Kaspar Jancis, Sasha Svirsky, Nadja Svirsky, Gabriel Bohmer, and Leonid Schmelkov, and my co-director, Malcolm Turner. Me and Malcolm will actually be back here tomorrow night, and in fact for about the next 7 nights, something like that, running live Q&As with filmmakers from all over the world. So you've got a lot more to see of me and Malcolm's faces on your screens. But thank you again to all these filmmakers. Hope you've enjoyed this live stream, and hope you've enjoyed what you've seen of the festival so far, and please keep tuning in and watch more. So thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.